today's Transport Evolved, Nissan finally starts to advertise the fun of driving electric. Bob Lutz calls Tesla a fringe brand, and Toyota asks if you're a handbrake. These stories and more coming up next on Transport Evolved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 212 of Transport Evolved, recorded on Sunday the 28th of September 2014. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield and I'm your usual host, and as you might have seen over the last couple of weeks, there hasn't been the usual Transport Evolved shows coming out of the Transport Evolved network. I'd just like to apologise for that. I ended up in hospital. I don't really want to go into too many details here on the show today, but thank you so much for all the well wishes that people sent. There was an internet meme going around which made me very embarrassed. I'm not going to say any more than that, but fingers crossed. We should have a TEN episode for you on Friday as normal, and this is the first kind of new show of the since I've been in hospital. So I've only been out for a couple of days. It makes me sound like I'm a prisoner. So anything is possible. But joining me today, I've got two excellent guests who are ready for literally anything. Joining me all the way from down the road, Mr. Robert Llewellyn. How are you today, Robert?
Hello, you're very good, thank you. Yes, I'm very pleased that that everything's working, so that's very satisfying.
I can see you, I can hear you. And guess who else we can see and hear? The wonderful Miss Chelsea Sexton. How are you, Chelsea?
I am strapped in and ready to go.
Sorry.
For those who don't know,
That's what you get for having the both of us on together. It's been way too long. You should do it more often. I have it all saved up.
Just before we were about to go on air, for those who don't know, I'm strapped in here. Just quite literally. Strapped in by my cables, I hasten to add. I have headphones on, I have a lav mic on, and the cables on them are not very long. And I'm right by the mixing desk. So in order to close, for example, the studio door, I have to disconnect everything and walk over to the door and close it and shut everything. But today, something went wrong with my microphone, which meant it was making a horrible noise every time I disconnected it. As I'm now connected and we've got rid of that horrible noise, I wanted to do everything I possibly could to make sure that we didn't have that horrible noise again. So I put my partner in to help me out because I was strapped in. And Chelsea, I don't know what to say.
It was far better explanation, I just gotta say.
It was far better.
Yeah.
So, Chelsea, what's been going on in your world lately?
Not too much, just a couple hundred events around the country. We are fresh off the heels of National Plug-in Day and Alt Car in my backyard and various things. Or, I'm sorry, right. National Drive Electric Week. I will not get used to that renaming.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a big year this year, and I mean, we'll talk about that later on in the show. But you've also been going to Japanese car events. I saw a tweet yesterday.
Yes, it had absolutely nothing to do with EVs, but classic Japanese cars, old Datsuns and things, are rather popular in my household, I think among boys in general, actually. So there was a very large classic Japanese car show in Long Beach, which is about 20 miles south of me. So we went down there and spent the morning.
We can't complain, really. I mean, there's no way that you can complain about that, Chelsea. It's perfectly normal and natural, I think. And
I don't recall complaining.
No, but I mean, other people can't complain. They can't say, "Oh, you went to a gas car show." No, I think Japanese cars are allowed.
Everybody appreciates classics.
They do, and I've had my eye on a Nissan Figaro for the last couple of weeks. Part of being in hospitals meant that I've had a lot of copious amounts of free time. And I might have been looking online for all these Japanese K-Class cars that I would really like to own in the future. Some of them one of them, in fact, being the Nissan Figaro. And I was thinking, wonder if I could build an electric Nissan Figaro, because I think they're really cute. You've also, you also, obviously, you're on a long-term babysitter, mother, to a Mitsubishi i-Miev. Is probably the best way of putting it, right?
Well, yes, I lost my first foster child. So I was driving a right-hand drive 2009, so very
Right.
early. It would have fit in really well yesterday morning at the Classic Car Show. But alas, I had to give it back in June because it was nearing the end of its legally allowed exemptions for being in the US, and they were going to crush it. But instead, it was one of the cars that was just shipped off to Laos. So they sent it off to yet another place to get it out of the US, but keep another of Chelsea's cars from being crushed. So I was kind of proud.
That's really sweet. Robert, your
Yes.
car is still, your first Mitsubishi i-Miev is still alive somewhere, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I've not seen it, but I know it's around somewhere. Yes.
Yeah, every time I see one, I try and figure out whose number plate and whatever. And I know one of
Yeah.
my best friend happens to have one of those early cars, because you were part of an early cable trial for the early Mitsubishi i-Mievs, and one of my friends, my best friend, owns one of those early cars that she managed to second or third owner.
Right.
So that's cool. So you've now got another Mitsubishi, have you, Chelsea?
Well, I don't have it at the moment, but yes, I took a 2010 to try to get it up and going, and it's a little bit more finicky than the first one was. Around a parking lot for a very long time, and it shows. So it's at the moment in for service, and hopefully I'll get it back. But either way, I've had a really lovely run in these little Japanese K cars that would be right after your heart.
So sweet. They are so sweet. So Robert, you've been driving your Nissan Leaf for
yes.
45,000 now. And where are you at?
No, 40. Just come up to 44,000. Just short of 44,000 miles. Yeah.
Not quite the 62.5 that we've now got on ours, I'm afraid.
You've always been way ahead of me in every field. But particularly in mileage, you've always done more than I have.
But your lovely blue Nissan Leaf, are you all happy and well?
It's fine. It really needs a bit of vacuuming inside. I just moved it to make sure the chickens didn't get on it just now. I have an ongoing battle with my chickens. They love my electric car, as in they like squatting on top of it and then leaving presents for me.
As chickens do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've moved it out of their range.
Having ridden in your other car a couple of weeks ago, I can vouch for the chickenness.
You guys are great for visuals today.
The chickens, he blames the chickens for everything, I'm convinced. He blames the chickens for everything. But you've been busy with other things recently, Robert, in your little Cotswold village. So tell us about that.
It's very much in its extremely early stages, but essentially we've had the first meeting to launch a community renewable energy, and we're certainly by no means the first village to do this. In fact, there's around 5,000 projects of a similar nature that are in process in the UK. So there's a couple of hundred that have reached where they've installed stuff.
Wow.
So it's still early days. But I had no idea it was quite that many. I'd heard of a few villages that had done it. And it is essentially a combination of discrete solar and micro hydro in our particular village. So we have two that run through or very near the village, which both had mill races on them in the past. We're talking hundreds of years ago. There's no build.
Oh, I think we're losing Robert there. He really is in the middle of the Cotswolds, and
still
that's very interesting, Robert. But you're. I can see you now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, mother. Sorry, I'm showing my age now.
I could do descriptive movements. That's a hill. Hill. Rain. Stream. Does that help?
It does.
Chicken.
I tell you what, Robert. Do you think you could maybe persuade your local community to improve their broadband as well as renewable energy?
That is one of the points someone made in the village, that if the village could have a fund, which would be from the benefits of the renewable energy income, we could actually pay for a fibre optic connection to the village. Yeah.
You just Google. I mean, Google's putting in, Google Fiber everywhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so
Come and put some here. God, we need it. Yeah, no.
So for those who didn't quite get Robert's a second ago, which did sound a little Klingon-y, essentially your local village is clubbing together and having this renewable energy generation project. Isn't that right, Robert?
That is correct.
Fantastic.
That is correct. That's the idea. And it had a very positive response from members of it. It's a very small village. Only 50 houses. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50.
Wow.
So small and quite.
But
so yeah, so that's the plan, and we're very, very enthusiastic. So we now are in the process. Sorry.
So perfectly formed.
It's getting very difficult now. Right. Yes, small but perfectly formed. Sorry.
Well, this is the point at which Robert needs to go out in his street with a megaphone for everybody else to get off the internet.
Yeah. Can you stop downloading illegal Russian website movies?
Oh dear, this show's getting worse. Oh, he's come back. I can hear him in high definition now. Yes. It's obviously, it comes and goes. But there we go. We're going to move on, lest things go downhill a lot further.
Yeah.
But we're gonna discuss, to begin with, the National Drive Electric Week. Obviously, it happened, it ended last Sunday, but it was a real success, wasn't it, Chelsea?
Yeah, it was a real success. There were, I think I last heard, about 147, give or take, different events around the country and even a few international. It was a little saddened to see that really only one of them tended to get talked about, and that was the Northern California one, where they set the Guinness Book of World Records for most EVs in one place at 507, which was awesome. But I'm also starting to feel like, the Guinness World Record attempts are the long-distance road trip for EVs. I would really like to see us all kind of move on from that. And in particular for Drive Electric Week, I think what got overlooked is all the other events and all of the other volunteers and how much good of it. It's really a unique event that is really by current drivers for potential drivers is kind of the goal. So they all come out, they bring their cars, and that way people who are kind of thinking about it can come talk to current drivers and take test drives, and the automakers have gotten more and more involved. And so it's been really fun to see it grow. Every year the spirit of it is slightly different. So we'll see what happens next.
That's true. I've got a feel at the moment, I'm in a bit of a downer at the moment, to be honest, about plug-in advocacy and the way that it's being done in general. It sometimes does feel a little bit like we're not moving on a lot. Well, not all of us, but some of us, some groups, let's put it like that. They're not moving on from the quite militant, quite out there advocacy that needed to be done back in the early days to get electric cars on the road. And now electric cars are on the road. It sometimes feels as if we need to move that forward a bit in the way regarding the events that are held and the way some of the events are held. A lot of the events this year were brilliant. They were much more mature, but I did see some examples of events that just made me go, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be a few, and certainly you have a local case or two who are sort of militant in their style at the moment. I do hear you in that a lot of the grassroots groups and a lot of just advocates in general and various types of stakeholders have to continually figure out what their role in all of this is as the industry itself gets bigger, stumbles and falls here and there, has successes elsewhere. And so naturally the role of the advocate does change, and the whole sort of conscience of the industry doesn't exactly go away. In fact, some of that is still needed and needed more than it's being done at the moment. Policy work from the outside is still needed. Public education and encouragement and celebration, all of that is still. Different people are getting burnt out, moving on, or coming back, and just trying to figure out how their role and their talents are best conveyed to continue this forward. And even in general, as an industry, as a movement, we go back and forth between lots to be done, and sometimes that means digging in and doing it, and other times it means like, oh my God, to be done. And we're in a weird sophomore slump as an industry and as a movement right now, because we had the really early vehicle launches. It's all awesome, and now we're at the point where 4 years in, and it has been 4 strong years since Leaf and Volt and those early cars, we still have the same basic automakers, not a lot of new entrants to the space, although a couple are kind of starting to come in, and we'll see what happens. There's some frustration over that, and just a lot of questions that are emerging about, is this really going to happen? Some are too complacent that of course it's going to happen and nothing needs to be done. Others are very much in the latter camp of, no, there's lots of work and we have to keep on it. And it is looking good and it is looking encouraging, but it's not so far gone that we can all just walk away and go do something else.
Right.
So it is a weird space, and we either have to, it's a little binary. We got to dig the work when it's least fun, or else this all could very well lose a lot of momentum.
And I think there is an element there also of people who come to electric vehicles now are not necessarily the people who want to socialise in the same way that, say, the three of us may have felt comfortable socialising back in the day. You think 4 or 5 years ago, going to an EV meet with lots of other people, being quite geeky about the cars, talking about how they worked, getting down and dirty under the hood type thing, is not everybody's cup of tea. And I think that was maybe some of my bugbear with some of the events. I would like to have seen more events that focused on just driving the cars, enjoying the cars, having days where the only connection between you and everybody else was that you just happen to have this particular car that runs on a particular different type of fuel, and you're all having fun. And I mean, that's something that we'll come to later on in the show, because as one of the stories connecting with actually advocating about the joys of driving electric purely by the experience it gives you behind the wheel. Let's move on. We're talking about, there were 6 new bills, Chelsea, in your state, in California, that were signed
Yes.
during Plug-in National Drive Electric Week. I did it as well, look. And I'd like to know what you think about those bills, because some of them I think are going to make a really big change. Some I think might be considered more of a token. So why don't you run us through those bills?
Well, there were a handful of them. A couple are mostly just refilling pots that already exist.
Yeah.
So we've had a particular rebate incentive in California for plug-in cars for several years now. It is constantly running out of money. So one of the bills just refilled the pot a little bit for a little bit longer. HOV lanes that formalized the extension of HOV lane access for plug-in cars, the white stickers and the green stickers you hear about. Those are now eligible through 2019. And what it does do, I think some of the more interesting things that are less sexy is that it does afford some funding to heavier duty vehicles, street, the types of stuff we don't really hear about that much, but that has a huge potential to make an air quality and oil dependence difference, but that doesn't get very much attention. And in fact, several categories got around $10 million each, which is not that much money in the grand scheme, but certainly will help. And then, we have the ongoing yay hydrogen and some of those sorts of things going on as well. So some of it will make more of a difference than others. None of it is shocking or out of the blue. It's mostly just formalizing efforts that were already in the works.
Right. Oh, there were obviously there was the high the toll lane part. I can't remember which bill that was. There was one bill that said if you drive an EV, you can now get discount or free driving on certain toll lanes. I presume the one that's probably going to be stick in most people's minds in the Bay Area, of course, is across. Can't think of the name of the highway. Is it 101? The bridge.
Yes, there are several that are bridge based, but yes,
that goes over, and I know I've driven across that in the rush hour, and it's horrible. And being able to use the high occupancy vehicle lane if you're in an EV is a big bonus. There's also the Cash for Clunkers scheme and the concept of trying to encourage low income families into EVs. Do we think that's going to be enough? Because I'm worried that that's too piecemeal.
I mean, I love the general thinking. I'm a little concerned with the specific execution of some of the, call them, social equity efforts for EVs. It's basically being styled after limiting income eligibility and that kind of thing, which is an obvious way to do it. Another even easier way would simply be to cap MSRP and say, if you're buying a $100,000 car, you don't qualify. The car's got to be 40,000 or whatever it is. Pick a number. So there are various ways to do it. there has been some debate about whether the way this is specifically being done really will get more lower income people into cars, but by limiting income, you're inherently making sure that they don't apply to some higher income people who might automatically buy EVs.
Right.
And because everybody shares in the air quality benefits and things, it may or may not be a specific target. I'm more interested in seeing efforts that approach used cars that go after the specific financing. I mean, we're not talking generally, it's lower incomes. It's not people who are paying cash and writing a check for a $40,000 car. So things like financing and monthly payment become really important. You know, the average payment in this country is $530, give or take. I mean, that's huge. At the same time, if you have a Leaf you can get brand new for $199 a month, and you have used cars without any of those incentives and higher financing rates, even if you're aiming at the people who normally buy used cars, they're going to be more expensive than somebody who is able to get a new one. So there's lots of those sorts of details that actually require a bit more thinking, but have a larger potential than just simply saying, if you make more than X money, you don't get the credit.
And Robert, that's a problem in the UK as well, isn't it? I mean, if you look, you know, traditionally, if you are the kind of person who could, if you wanted to, go out and put a big deposit down on a car, or maybe even buy it outright, you can get some amazingly low lease deals, some amazingly great finance. If you're the kind of person who maybe doesn't have a glowing credit record, they put the interest rate up, obviously, as a way to try and secure their investment and to make sure that they get a high amount of money out of you. But that's a big challenge in the UK as well, isn't it? People can't. The access to plug-in vehicles is still very much a middle class thing, isn't it? It's gone quiet now. I don't know if we've lost him. He looks pensive.
Oh, I'm here. Hello.
Oh, there you go. Did you hear that?
I heard you. I'm hearing everything perfectly. I'm in heaven here. I'm just hearing everything exquisitely well. You can't hear me. You can hear me now?
I can, yes.
Oh, good. I mean, all I was going to say is I would say that still at the current time, the people who have bought electric cars up to now, I wouldn't even say they're in the middle class. They're the upper middle class. You know, you've got to be quite a wealthy person to be able to afford to do that. I mean, I think that, you know, I've come across exceptions, but last weekend I was at an event in Malvern, which is clearly the electric car capital of the West Midlands, because there was a lot of people there. There was a lot of electric cars there, a lot of people who own them, and they were all scientists and engineers, quite a few who work for the Ministry of Defence in one way or another. And it's very interesting that it is scientists and engineers that will make that leap first. They understand how the machine works. They know it isn't a risk to buy it. They're 50s. So, you know, people who have some spare cash. And, you know, I think I've met a couple of people who've bought second-hand electric cars and absolutely love them, and they were cheaper. Yeah. But there just aren't enough of them. When there's 100,000 electric cars, there'll be 10,000 second-hand ones or third-hand ones, you know. So
and as Chelsea says, you know, at the moment, because these cars, the new cars, are coming down in price. I mean, what's the price difference now between the very first people who bought the Nissan Leaf are paying what, $30,000, Chelsea?
Yeah. Well, same here, wasn't it?
Well, here they were more. They're down around 28 now, base, 28, 29, and they were, as I recall, more like 35 or 6 initially. Yeah.
So they're massive price reductions, which means those early cars are worth about the same or possibly slightly more than some of the really good incentive lease deals that some car companies are offering, and that still puts a lot of people way out. I know in the UK, if you want a cheap electric car, there is only one electric car that you really should look at, and that's the Mitsubishi i-Miev Citroen C0 Peugeot Ion. It's the same car, 3 different badges. Those are now starting to become truly affordable, as are, you know, the Renault Fluences, which are no longer made in Europe and not supported in the same way. It's going to be interesting later this year when the Ampera and the Volt leave the market, because that's going to make a big difference as well. So we'll see what happens. Right, final story of the segment. I want you to listen to this video. I'm not going to say anything.
Over the next year, we'll be faced with a decision to support oppose, or even ignore the future of hydrogen fuel. While there's no doubt that the need for an alternative to fossil fuel is real, the debate around hydrogen will intensify. There will be the naysayers, the handbrakes who say that it can't be done, that it's unsafe, that there's no infrastructure to support it. Then there'll be the trailblazers, the first to put up their hand, their foot, the bold few, driven to be remembered as those who made a difference, and perhaps the ones who made all the difference. So, as we travel down this hydrogen-paved highway, ready to mark a turning point in history, the question isn't if you'll turn, it's when.
Oh, go on, Robert. Tell us about that.
No, I do not want to give them I don't want to give them any ammunition, and certainly I don't wish to be a handbrake. I am very keen, and I would be very happy to be sitting in my battery-operated car in a traffic jam surrounded by hydrogen fuel cell cars. I cannot possibly say that would be bad. That would be fantastic. Imagine that, that you're stuck in a traffic jam on the M25 and there's 5,000 hydrogen fuel cell cars around you. That would be a tremendous change in the whole structure of our economy and the way we use energy and all that stuff. I remain healthily skeptical because I have yet to see any proof otherwise. I'm skeptical about where the hydrogen comes from. I'm very skeptical about that.
So, for those who don't know, that was Toyota's first, I think, mass market ad for the fuel cell vehicle, which is probably going to be called the Mirai when it comes to market later next summer. I think that's a very depressing advert, Chelsea. It feels like, obviously it targets all of the EV advocates and future car journalists, etc., who've gone, well, it's a good idea, but, and it also targets the people who've gone, it's not a good idea. This makes no sense. It's I hate to say it, Chelsea. It sort of smells a little bit like the early EV1 ad.
What it is a political campaign ad. Over the next year, we will be forced to support, ignore, deny. That is a campaign ad, and that is aimed squarely at the California Air Resources Board and everybody involved in that discussion. Full stop. After that, it's like Apple tried to make an ad for hydrogen. That's the tone they were aiming at. So, I mean, the challenge is that in their minds, or in the perception they're trying to create, it's not just about the naysayers and the people who believe it won't work. It's that anybody who dares ask a question, anyone who has any kind of skepticism, is automatically the handbrake and the naysayer. It is black and white with this ad and with this camp of proponents, which, they're assuming everybody who's into electric cars is on the other side, when in fact there are many that are kind of sitting in the middle going, look, I'm not sure how I see this happening. There's definitely a lot of questions, but to Robert's point, would we be unhappy if there were two kinds of zero emission vehicles on the road and people were happily driving both? Or even ultimately, if hydrogen did, make itself so much better that all the EV folks were compelled to go, oh my God, this is awesome. Forget my little batteries. I'm going to go for hydrogen. Yeah. Fine. The challenge is that everyone is expected to buy in. Everyone is trashed if they don't automatically buy in. Can't ask any questions. And all of the evidence is boiled down to trust us, which they would never, ever, ever accept about electric cars.
Right.
It's the double standards that are the problem. And it's the lack of willingness to have the conversation that are the problem with the perception of hydrogen versus EVs and how polarized and what a holy war that's become. But just about this camp of proponents who, even though most of the EV folks have moved on, they got their cars and they're not all that interested in even attacking hydrogen anymore, it's still being framed by the hydrogen side as if everybody's coming out against us and we're merely trying to protect our little dream, which is baloney.
And it seems pathetic in so many ways. And there are so many other ways that Toyota could be handling this. Obviously, we haven't seen anything from Honda yet, have we? Not really. Honda's supposed to be bringing out this, from what I can understand, quasi-insight fuel cell vehicle, right, Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, Honda has gotten quieter in general in all things, which is fine. I mean, Honda's a long hydrogen believer. I don't have any issue with that, or with Toyota or Hyundai. What the challenge in the last year or so, particularly since January, has been how disproportionate the PR effort behind hydrogen has become compared to the vehicles being built. If you're building and selling cars, come on down. But until you're building and selling cars in decent numbers, the PR effort and the media attention and, the touting in ads like this should be commensurate with the actual hardware effort made. And I did send this to one of the Lexus Toyota PR folks and just sort of on the side and said, what the heck, especially ads, what the heck. And even he said, God, I'm really surprised we put this much money and effort into something for such a compliance car. The hydrogen car is so small volume.
Yeah.
And we know this. We know it's, at best hundreds of vehicles a year, legally limited to 2,500 maximum per year.
Yeah.
So, it smells of desperation just because it's a lot of dollars for a few number of cars.
Robert, do we think that Toyota has been emboldened a little bit by its success with President Abe in Japan? Because obviously the Japanese government right now is falling over itself to make a hydrogen economy. It wants a hydrogen economy. It sees hydrogen as being a way of coping with being on the Pacific Ring of Fire, being able to cope with disasters, having, these discrete hydrogen backup power units that they can just use in a disaster, have it power the cars. Obviously, it's got bucket loads of coastline. As long as it can electrolyze enough seawater, it can produce hydrogen. The cost, the environmental benefit of that is questionable. But do you think what's going on in Japan and
it just switched off then. Can't hear anything now. Pooh.
I hear you, but not Nikki.
Yeah, no. You can hear me, Chelsea, but because I can't hear Nikki at all.
Neither can I.
Oh, right. So something's. Oh, there it is. There's some click. Thankfully, there's two professionals on the show that know how to operate a microphone.
I'm coming back slowly. You should be able to...
She's down the long tube again. Oh, she came unstrapped. I'm trying to remember all my points because I've got lots of points to make now, and I'm really good at forgetting things. When she comes back on, I'll go, I can't remember nothing. I'll tell you what, Chelsea. Well, I don't even know if we're on air, but I found it is remarkably aggressive. I think that advert. I mean, I'm really intrigued by it because obviously I know quite a few people at Toyota in this country.
Sorry, I don't know quite what happened there. I'm back.
Very good.
Sorry, you were saying.
You sort of switched off. It didn't fade. It just went thump.
I know. I do apologise for that. I don't know what happened there, and I think I might be going again. But just keep talking, Robert. Oh,
so are we still going out?
We are still
Chelsea
going
and I?
out. Yes, we are still.
All right.
There. Yeah.
No, I mean, what? Because that's a particular argument that Nikki was just making. Because I don't really know anything about the Japanese situation. I'm not up to speed.
Oh, and now Robert's going funny. It's going to be one of those days today, isn't it? It's just.
Certainly, if it's.
No, he's gone.
It is. It's always been my problem. I like the idea of editing this together at some point. I don't know how you do
it. It's going out raw, Robert. Just keep talking.
I just think it's remarkable, by the way, that this is the first time I am not the problem child.
Yes, Chelsea is perfect. Yeah. Robert, carry on. Do you want to tell us?
Okay, so I can't tell if you can hear. Can you hear? Are you hearing me, Chelsea, all the time?
Yes, we're all hearing you.
Only choppy.
Oh, choppy. Oh, dear. It might be the way I speak.
You're fine for a moment, and then you're choppy. So.
My connection is so lousy. My big problem is always that the fossil fuel industry are really, really keen to promote hydrogen. They've always talked about it. They've talked about it all my adult life.
And they're cutting you off now, Robert. As soon as you
Shell
start
has
talking
always
about it.
been very, very pro hydrogen.
And as
Maybe
soon
that's what it is.
Yeah, as soon as you
Soaring up
start talking about, fossil fuels, you're done. It just goes. And see, now you're laughing and it sounds fine.
I'm just going to laugh. I'm going to go, fossil fuels. See if I can. It's GCHQ. They're monitoring everything we say.
Yes.
And they're obviously all supporting the fossil fuel industry as part of the corporate hegemony.
Oh dear, what have we let ourselves in for?
But no, that's always been my problem. Now, if Japan, I'm going to do this as slowly as I can in the hope that it comes out. If Japan can produce hydrogen from splitting water, although you get a 4-to-1 loss in pure energy terms, and that's where all their hydrogen comes from. I'm 100% behind hydrogen. If they can use renewable energy, wasted renewable energy to split hydrogen, fantastic. Totally 100% behind Toyota and their wonderful struggle towards a pure hydrogen economy.
Yes.
I'm 100% behind it. If or crude oil, then I'm afraid it's a fossil fuel car, and I'm not supporting it. Simple as that. That's my.
That makes sense. Chelsea, do you think that Toyota is emboldened by its successes in Japan? The 3 million yen. 3 million yen per car.
How can you, if you're a hydrogen proponent, how would you not be emboldened by the huge and fairly recent political for hydrogen in Japan? I mean, why wouldn't you be? Yeah. At the same time, that ad was clearly not made for the Japanese market.
No.
So, this notion that, okay, fine, there might be, just as we've talked about in the past, things where Better Place might have worked or not have worked. Not every solution is the same solution everywhere. We don't do a lot of sugarcane ethanol here, and Brazil lives off the stuff. Yeah. So it may be that even something like hydrogen makes sense in certain geographies or under certain circumstances. And certainly for many years, some of us have looked at it towards some of the heavier dutier applications that are harder to electrify with batteries today. Yeah. And fleet applications where you can have one central station that serves a lot of vehicles. And so it's not that hydrogen is good or bad. It's not evil or not. The way in which it is being pursued compared to the data that is being put behind it and the conversation being had around the whole thing of what makes the most sense in what geographies.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to say about that advert, which I think is really intriguing, and I've never seen anything like it before, is it's aimed that's not aimed at the general public. That advert would make no sense to someone who drives a regular gas car or a diesel car and isn't interested in cars. And if you ask them about their car, they'll tell you it's blue. Those people, the majority, would look at that and go, what the hell are they talking about? Because those people have never criticized or supported hydrogen. They don't know anything about it. That is very specifically targeted at a very, very small number of people who at present, particularly in the United States, at present drive battery electric cars or plug-in hybrids and are involved in that whole area. So it's very pointed. It's extraordinary. Yes. It's really not for it's not for general consumption. I could show that to my neighbor over the road who just go, oh, right, is that what's happening? They wouldn't know anything, wouldn't mean anything to them at all. It's aimed at effects, which is very odd.
Not going to work.
I mean, it's odd that they're bothering to do it. Why take any notice at all? Why not say, we developed this hydrogen fuel cell car, you put hydrogen in one side, you fill it up really easily, it drives along, and all that comes out the back is water. That's great.
That makes
brilliant advert.
Makes more sense.
Well, and that's why it's a CARB campaign ad. It is aimed squarely at that group's constituents and those paying attention development of the zero emission vehicle regulations, which are being re-reviewed in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right, let's have a quick ad break. I'm hoping that my I'm actually sitting down today. As you know, I've been in hospital lately, and I think that's probably what it was. The microphone cable, I managed to pull it out. Sorry. I'm blaming myself and the fact that I was ill. If you want to support Transport Evolved and you like what we do, please do consider donating. You can go to www.transportevolved.com, our main website, and on the right-hand side, on our what we call our right-hand rail, you can actually donate to the show, and I can actually show you it here. This is our website right here. And if you see on the right-hand side down here, I don't know if I can scroll down at the same time, you will see, let me turn my laptop around, and my green screen is just, I'm destroying the green screen here. You can see that it says donate, and you can click on the donate button, which is somewhere down here, and you can take out a monthly subscription. You can donate £5 a month, £10 a month, £5 a month, £10 a month, £20 a month, or £40 a month. And £40 does seem like a lot, but we did have one person who asked us specifically to add that amount, and so we called it the supercharge amount. So that was pretty cool. And if you want to support us, you can do that. If you can't afford a monthly subscription, you can also do a one-off donation and contact us to find out how to do that. Alternatively, if you can't afford any of those, just tell everybody about the show. We are nearly about to top a really big milestone in our subscribers, and when we get that milestone, I will give away a t-shirt, one of these t-shirts no less, not one of the ones that's in the t-shirt shop, but one of these ones that you can only get if you work on the staff or you happen to be our 1000th subscriber. So bear in mind that if you are 1000, I will try and figure out who you are and send that to you. Right, on to part 2. Robert is making all sorts.
Sorry, I'll stop now.
He is all, rumbling away. What has he like?
Troublemaker.
Troublemaker, indeed. We are on to part 2 of the show, and we are talking about the BMW i3. Now, the BMW i3 has been around for, 6 months now, Chelsea?
Give or take.
Give or take. And to begin with, it was quite expensive, lots of price gouging. You can now get a lease deal for less than $400 a month. The caveat being you have to put down a fairly sizable deposit. $400 a month. You have to put down a fairly sizable deposit, and of course you have to have good credit rating. This is a Californian dealer, was doing it just for 4 or 5 specific cars. But do we think that this will help push down the price of other cars like the Leaf and the Volt? It has to, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't have to, and it does remain to be seen how this spreads beyond that one California dealer. But I have always been of the mind that lease price has to settle for the i3 somewhere in the something with a 399, 369, 3 something, just to even make it competitive with the others. At that price, it does not necessarily do to the other cars. It's a BMW versus a Volt versus a Leaf, and so the fact that there's still $100 a month separation between those cars makes sense on brand level alone. Otherwise, the i3 is an 80-ish mile EV, so is the Leaf, so is the handful of other EVs out there. So it really is just brand and the subjective features that differentiate it from the others. So it doesn't necessarily do anything to the price. At the same time, both Leaf and Volt are about to be refreshed completely independent of i3 and so their pricing may be adjusted as part of that whole refresh, just as it is.
And that's going to be a very interesting thing because we're at a point where I think a lot of people are holding off on buying a new EV because they want to see what's coming next. And of course, it's also going to be interesting because those first-time buyers, those early adopters are now coming. We've got cars that are 3, 4, 5 years old, coming up to 5 years old. And it's time, 5 years old is about that time where you want to switch cars. Obviously, in the UK, it's much sooner than that. We tend to switch cars after 3 years. That's because of our stupid MOT laws. But it'll be interesting to see those cars for the market. That will hopefully bring the price down, fingers crossed. Talking about the UK, though, and I've only got this on because Robert happens to be up the road from this particular gentleman. And I'm also going to remind Robert that he's scooted himself a bit further close to the camera now, and so he's chopping his own head off. There you go.
Yes, you're right. Sorry.
You chopped your head off, Robert, and I'd set the shot up so lovely beforehand.
Is that better?
Mr. Jezza, Mr. Jeremy Clarkson.
I know, he's my hero.
He recently took a BMW i8 out and was spotted in various places. A couple of YouTube videos of him being obnoxious to people in it. His verdict wasn't exactly glowing about the BMW i8. His headline for it was, "We're going nowhere fast, but boy, it's a wild ride." And he generally just talks about how much he hates the Toyota Prius, which has got nothing to do with the BMW i8, which I found hilarious. I don't know if you read the review. Chelsea, did you read the review?
Yeah.
Carry on, you're smiling. What did you think?
What else are you going to expect from Mr. Clarkson? I mean, it is what it is. On one hand, he can't hate every plug-in car forever, or else that ultimately affects his own credibility. And it is a sexy car, so to the extent that there's any kind of positive review, we have long said that sexier, sportier examples of plug-in cars will only be helpful as we try to appeal to the and at the same time, it's also minimally electrified. So, it is oddly enough, roughly the luxury equivalent of the plug-in Prius.
Yeah.
His review fits.
And interestingly,
Yeah,
the last
absolutely.
three paragraphs are very interesting indeed. I'm going to read those last three paragraphs out. It must also be said that the back seats are completely useless and the ride is just on the wrong side of jiggly. As a car, then, it still needs a bit of work. But as an achievement, wow. Toyota has convinced the world that if you wanted a hybrid, you could pretty much kiss goodbye to the concept of fun. But with the i8 BMW has shown this ain't necessarily so. I still believe that with hybrids, we are going down the wrong road, but with an i8 going in the completely wrong direction is at least wonderfully enjoyable. What do you make of that, Robert? He's gone ever so quiet. He's completely vanished.
No, it's so annoying. I was sitting here all quietly. Can you hear me now? Testing. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Can you hear me? 1.
I can hear you.
I hadn't said fossil fuel. Can you hear me now?
I can. Carry on.
All I was going to say was if I was a BMW executive, I'd be very happy with that review. I think it's a very good review coming from him. It's a wonderful review. He gets huge traction. Lots and lots. Wouldn't consider buying a plug-in car of any sort will read that and be intrigued, I think.
Yeah.
I love the way it starts. I think the way it starts tells us everything we need to know about hydrogen and the politics of hydrogen. Line 2, we are all dependent on oil. Everyone knows that, and everybody knows the long-term solution is hydrogen. That is a given. That is accepted. That is what's sensible. That is what Clarkson is telling us. And millions of people will read that and think he's right. I am here sitting just the other side of the river Windrush from Mr. Clarkson to tell you he's 100% wrong.
Well, you know what the really funny thing is? I think it's going to be a future where we're going to see people pulling up at petrol stations or pulling up at charging stations. And it's going to be interesting to see those with the cars that are less popular will be the ones that find it's easier to refuel.
Oh, I see. Oh, you mean if there was hydrogen filling stations and recharges? I mean, this is one of the interesting things I experienced when I drove the Honda Clarity, their hydrogen fuel cell experimental car. No, not the Clarity. What was it called? The Honda.
Yeah, it was
the Clarity.
Yeah,
Clarity.
Was how long it took to fill it, because it isn't like putting petrol in. It takes much longer. It took about 15 minutes to fill the tank.
Yeah.
It's not like filling up a petrol car. It takes quite a long time. But anyway, that's another argument. I thought it was intriguing that he said what he did about the car. I mean, I was in it recently. It is a remarkable car to drive. It's a remarkable car to be driven in by a skilled driver. But it's a petrol car. I mean, it's a fantastic petrol car. It's got I fully support it because it's got a very small petrol engine. And it goes ridiculously fast. And it's an amazing piece of engineering. It truly is. But it's a petrol car with some batteries.
Yes.
It's not an electric car. It's not even remotely an electric car. In the same way as nor is a Toyota Prius a plug-in Prius, which I have. It's a petrol car that uses less petrol than most cars. But it's a petrol car.
Yeah. At the end of the day. It's going to be interesting to see what happens moving on. But we're on to the next story that, Robert, I'm going to warn you now.
Oh, yeah.
This one involves oil.
Marvel. I love oil.
So I'm just going to talk to Chelsea because that way, you won't. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think oil is really important. I don't want the oil industry to stop. We need oil, but I just don't think we should burn as much as we do. We need it for a lot of other things. I'm a big supporter of oil industries.
Yes. All right. So Rockefeller Brothers, long-time investor in fossil fuels and oil and everything, announced this week that it intends to divest itself from fossil fuels. And go in other directions. Chelsea, are we living in a strange alternative universe?
No, and we've started to see different headlines in this. Stanford's investments were divested from oil a while back, and that made lots of news. And there's been various to do something similar. And on a media front, we've seen PR agencies, big PR agencies, who are now signing up to take clients who are anti-climate and different things. And so this is in some ways just part of the zeitgeist in general. And that's likely where its potential is, because whether or not enough dollars are involved here to make a giant difference from one announcement or another, it's a huge name, and the public is starting to see more and more headlines that it is unpopular to support oil or climate deniers or a various similar constituents. So that does potentially have an interesting effect on an individual investor level, but other than a headline, I did see a follow-up that said this was more of a one faction of the investment. It's not all. It's a specific piece, but it's still all of it's a good thing.
Yeah, Robert, what were you going to say?
All I was going to say was that, in fact, the Rockefeller fortune was built on fossil fuels. I mean, that's where their fortune comes from, and so I think it is a noticeable event, and it is, as Chelsea rightly said, it's a fairly small section of their total investments, but the very fact that they've done it, and that there is enormous pressure from groups all around the world to get, for instance, religious institutions to divest from fossil fuels, and big banks and big corporations. The fact that that's happening, I mean, it would be a very difficult world to negotiate as one of the big fossil fuel companies. I mean, they're on the back foot at the moment, which is, they have been for a while, and I think we'll see them bounce back, I'm sure. But the fact that there is this momentum of change, and I think that it's part of a much wider the
he's gone again.
Tendency, I believe, for it to start going the other way, because it's been pushed so far there by such powerful groups who, with all around the world. I'm not talking just about in the United States or even in Europe, but I'm talking about globally. There has been this enormous reaction to effectively the 1960s and 70s, the liberation, the ideas of equality, of gender equality, all those things. There's been an enormous, very vicious reaction against that, and I think this is a hint that it's reached the top of the pendulum swing, and it's about to come back down, which is very encouraging. I'm very pleased to hear it, even though it could be token, it could be called greenwash, all those things, but it has actually happened. So I'm very interested.
Maybe the future is different to what we imagine.
The future will definitely be different to what we imagine, because we all imagine different futures.
And your future, by the way, we should probably promote very quickly. Good time to promote. Robert's new book's coming out very soon, isn't it, Robert? News from the Clouds. And he can't hear me. Maybe he can hear me. Maybe he's talking. Robert's new book, News from the Clouds, is coming out soon.
Oh, I'm clouds. I'm doing clouds.
He's doing clouds.
Floating.
All right. Finally for this.
Oil-filled clouds.
Oil-filled clouds. Raining oil.
Oh, dear. Finally for this segment. I don't think I've ever had such a bad connection to you, Robert, before. It must be the weather or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the squirrels.
I think Jeremy Clarkson is downloading Russian porn.
I did not say that. And that is scurrilous. That is a scurrilous and scandalous thing to say.
I'm joking. This is a joke. But then he comes out with
the woman who's strapped in.
Yes. Tish. All right. Electric cars are always advertised as being a bit quirky, a bit kooky, a little bit weird. We've seen aliens. We've seen people with polar bears hugging them. We've seen all kinds of weird, crazy adverts over the last 4 years, haven't we, Chelsea?
Yes,
one of the things that you say against those ads is, come on guys, we just need to promote electric cars as fun to drive, right? That's your biggest okay.
Yeah, I mean, not solely, but electric or vehicles are an emotional purchase. Car advertising tends to be very emotive, and we have left that element out of almost all of the electric car advertising ever done.
Yep. And so I give you this advert, which I'm going to voice over because it doesn't have much in the way of kind of audio to go with it. So this is Nissan's latest advert. The Nissan Leaf has 100% torque. I have no idea what that means, says someone on Facebook. Well, Jen, it means you can do this. And then we cut to a video of a woman, very mild-mannered looking woman, sitting at the set of traffic lights, and a guy comes up in a big SUV, looks over, the light's red. Of course, he's gonna race away. And of course, when the light turns green, she completely pulls away. And then it says, "But please use your torque wisely." It's go torque, go electric, go Leaf. And it's a really nice, fun, short advert. It says nothing else, Chelsea. Is this the kind of advert you meant?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a start. It's not, like, the Leaf is not a Tesla, and it doesn't pretend to be, and so sort of the Tesla racy crowd would look at it and go, "Oh my God, that's so stupid, you know, a Leaf thinking it can race." And yet, the number of times I hear this exact story of I took a Viper or a Mustang or a whatever off the line by every single type of EV driver. I guarantee you half the Leaf drivers think they drive Teslas. That's their experience, and it does us no good in any way to try to disavow them of that. So I do like any ad that kind of conveys one of the main features electric car drivers like about their car. They are fun, and they are torquey, and they are quick off the line. This whole batch of ads, and there are 4 of them, also is an interesting twist because it addresses something else that a lot of the Leaf drivers have really been asking for, which is something more of a focus on lifestyle.
Right.
And this addresses a really practical question of whether it can race a car off the line or not. It is a question about EVs because the whole golf cart perception of will they get me up and onto a freeway? So it attacks a very specific practical question from that regard. Another one talks about a guy who plays the drums and how he can fit his entire drum kit into a Leaf and shows him sort of unpacking that. So just different aspects of portraying how does an EV fit into my everyday life. What we've been asking for is fun to drive, but we've also been asking for advertising and marketing that conveys the experience of owning and driving an electric car and all of those different experiences. So some of it's convenient to plug in at home, some of it's quiet, smooth, cargo, whatever. But how does this thing fit into my life is the fundamental question about an electric car. So it's definitely a step in the right direction.
It's a perfect chicken toilet as well. They forgot that one, Robert.
Yes, because
I've just chicken toilet.
As you said that, I could hear the chickens going completely doolally in the garage. I've got to go and sort them out in a minute.
Oh dear. All right, well, we're coming to the end of part 2, and I think I love that little ad. I think it's great, and do check out the others as they come. If you watch Transport Evolved regularly and you'd like to support us and you don't want to take out a donation or whatever, you can get swag. Look, we have a shop, transportevolved.com/shop, and you can buy a varsity jacket, a hoodie, you can have a baby romper, you can have T-shirts, badges, cups, iPhone covers, etc., 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 and they will all support Transport Evolved. Now, a lot of people sent me and the rest of the Transport Evolved team some wonderful photos of them going to Drive Electric Week events in which they happen to be wearing their Transport Evolved T-shirt. So thank you to all of you who sent them in. I thought that was brilliant, just to see the Transport Evolved logo out and about and at events and helping promote and spread the word about electric cars. And I actually had someone the other day contact me who said, I found out about you because I saw someone wearing a T-shirt at an event. So it works, Chelsea. It does work.
It does work. And you'll be thrilled actually to hear that a guy at the Huntington Beach Drive Electric Week event sought me out just to say that he listens to the show and wanted to know why you didn't have one up last week. So I explained the situation. He was all good, but one of your effort just to track me down so he could tell me he was a listener of your show.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm all touched now. Well, thank you, mystery person. That was brilliant. All right, well, Robert's not back yet. He's still beating up his chickens or something. But this story is one that you're gonna love, Chelsea. Now, the wonderful Maximum Bob. He's known, and I don't think this is really a story. It's one of those
ones. Not a story.
It's so not a story, but I included it because I knew you were on, and I knew you'd agree with me saying it's not a story. All right, so
Yeah.
Bob Lutz, interviewed by CNBC this week. Obviously, he used to be vice chairman of GM, didn't he?
Among many other things.
Among
Man
many
has
other
a storied
things.
history.
Known as the father of the Chevy Volt. That's a title that sometimes people dispute, sometimes people don't. He was known originally as a bit of an EV skeptic. Kind of came around in this classic turnaround fashion, right, Chelsea?
Well, he's come around to plug-in hybrids.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course now he owns... there's a man coming back.
Oh, sorry.
Are you done choking your chicken, Robert?
Oh, God. Yeah, they're all right. They're fine.
All right, well, we were talking about...
I'm in the middle of a prolonged chicken war. And...
somebody needs to do a caricature of Robert and the chicken. Although, Robert, you are an artist as well, so I expect to see a caricature of you and the chickens and the Leaf at some point. Anyway, we were talking about Maxwell and Bob. Bob Lutz gave an interview to CNBC this week. Of course, CNBC, knowing that Bob Lutz would how should we put this politely, Chelsea? Can we put it politely?
He always provides good screen time.
He gives good interviews. How about that? They asked him what he thought about Tesla. And he said, what, Chelsea?
Well, I mean, it started a little bit because Elon Musk has recently, and even before that, said that in his mind, their own is overpriced. And
right.
so
Which
Bob
is fair
agreed and
enough.
said, yes, if you look at the number of cars they produce and their valuation compared to a GM or a Ford and the number of cars they produce, Tesla's valuation is wildly inflated. And so, that in the grand scheme, by definition of volume, Tesla's kind of a fringe player. And part of the problem, I think, is that he used the particular word fringe instead of maybe niche or smaller or whatever. Because in the classic auto industry, based on volume, Tesla is a niche company.
Yes.
Any company that sells tens of thousands of cars a year. Aston Martin is a niche company. I mean, it's not derogatory. It's an objective statement of volume. But the fact that he chose the word fringe, and he may or may not have meant more into that. But if you look at Bob's more recent history, and he is on the board and variously involved with VIA. He's got the VL Destino twist on Fisker. Bob is involved in many even fringier companies. So I don't think him saying, yes, Tesla's a smaller player in the grand automotive world is really that big of an insult. But the word he chose to use it got some people all up in a snit.
But this is a challenge, isn't it? That Tesla... Okay, so in the computer world, okay, I'm going to lose so many people watching this now, but I'm just going to say it, so screw it. In the computer world, there are PC people, Windows people, there are Mac people, there are Linux people, and then there's a whole load of other people who just kind of use whatever happens to be around. And then there's people who do weird things and cross over, like me, who I've got a PC running Mac OS. I mean, that's just wrong in a lot of people's minds. But it's like Tesla has its own very niche fanboy brand of fans. Like Apple fans. They will happily travel halfway around the world to attend a Tesla event to get a glimpse of a new concept car that Tesla happens to be unveiling. Whether they can afford to, whether they save up to do it, is none of my business. But they will go and they will do it, just like the Apple fans who queue up for hours and hours and hours and hours to get their hands on the latest Apple gadgets. And they will fiercely defend anything that they potentially perceive as a threat, just like anybody who challenged Apple or Steve Jobs or anybody else was attacked by Apple fans. Wouldn't you agree, Chelsea?
Look, EV fans in general are a particularly passionate stripe. I have always said that they make early Saturn drivers look like they were nothing. So it's a broad category that's very passionate. And within that category, the Tesla drivers are particularly intense in their passion. And it's Tesla's biggest asset, no question, that their drivers are willing to go to every little thing. I did see more than just Tesla drivers take issue with this, read into this. And, some ways it's just the latest thing to get spun up over. I think anyone who sort of looks at Bob's statement, takes it in context, agrees it's not that big a deal. And, did he use the exact best word choice? No, whether he meant to or not. And we've all had a moment where we're doing something live and we don't pick, it's the word that comes to mind, not the best one for the situation. So,
Right.
Over time, he has been pretty damn supportive and has given Tesla credit for helping to inspire the Volt. So, there really just is no story here, but, just in any group, somebody will make a story out of just about anything.
And
It's
we've talked
the
about
breadth of the media folks picked it up too that I thought was a little sketchy.
And we've talked about it for 5 minutes, even though I said at the beginning it wasn't a story. So we're moving on. Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. Robert, you've driven it. You like it? Yes, he does. He's smiling and he's talking, and I can't hear a word he's saying. So, Chelsea, have you driven it?
I have not driven it. I do know many who have.
It's a lovely car. It's a lovely car. To vanish off the face of the earth. Robert, he likes
choking
it.
his chickens again.
He's putting his thumbs up. I don't know what's going on with Robert and his connection. Anyway, this is the new Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid concept car that we're going to be seeing at the Paris Auto Show coming up. What do you think, Chelsea?
I think that they need, particularly those of us in the US, they just need to get this damn car out. It is hugely anticipated.
Do you know what? I can't tell any difference. Sorry to interrupt. I can't tell any difference really between that and the previous one.
Well, I mean, subtle differences aside, no one will, especially for the plug-in, no one will know the difference here because we've never had any of them. So, really what the potential is the fact that it's the first plug-in SUV that will be available. And in fact, one of the first larger examples aside from the Tesla Model S. So there's a lot of anticipation about just some sheer variety beyond the 5-passenger sedan space. Yeah. So it's just an appetite to get the car here. Whether it's a newer version or the older version, which still looks quite current, at least for this market, it doesn't matter.
I would quite
but
like
it's been put off so many times that people are worried.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to see the Outlander go into the States. I would like to see the sexy Kia Soul hamster thing happen elsewhere in the world, and outside compliant states. Robert, what's your opinion? Let's see if we can get your audio to work. He's going to try speaking. I can't hear you now, Robert. Are you sure you haven't muted your audio? Because now he's frozen.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, dear. Skype has just given up on Robert, I think. Anyway. Oh, well. Robert, just, I've not muted you or anything. You should still be there. It was when you came back from the chickens. That's when it all went wrong. I'm blaming the chickens. I'm blaming Robert's chickens. He's making faces. I think it's brilliant. He's gone away now. We will back Chelsea. We're going to talk about wheel-to-well comparisons for electric cars versus hydrogen fuel cell. Talk us through that.
Well, the fuel cell partnership put out its latest wells-to-wheel analysis, and like some of the other reports we have seen, it's a little bit creative, but I mean, it's the same holy war fight. Is fuel cells better on a well-to-wheel basis,
right,
on certain emissions, particularly CO2, than electric? And if you compare it all apples to apples, no. If what tends to happen, you compare EVs on, West Virginia coal-based electricity to fuel cells on solar, wow, the fuel cells look better. At the end of the day, that's really not the issue, but it is the one that people keep focusing on. So,
Robert, you're back. Nope, he's not back. That's bizarre. Robert's doing jam and blast. I'm just glad he's he's able to emote. He can hear me. Well, I don't know what's going on there, Chelsea. But anyway, let's move to the final story. Finally, we're going to watch this. You can give us thumbs up or thumbs down for this. Need to be able to watch this. This is a car that appeared last week that I want. Chelsea, do you want it?
No.
Okay, I want this. and Robert, you'll know because I every time I talk to you about this particular cars, I always say I want one with a bed on the back and pickup. Here is a Nissan Leaf pickup, and I think it's brilliant.
I needed a project for a team building activity, so we can bring that team together. We had a need for a truck, a small truck, something to drive around, shop truck, to carry some stuff. So I thought about the Leaf and said, we gotta do something with that Leaf, and it could be a truck. We're going to do something together. This is a whole team, and we are going to learn to work together and then to bring ideas. Anything goes.
After he told us that it was going to be the Leaf, that was going to be the actual vehicle we were going to redo, I just went home and stayed up like until about 4 in the morning making all kinds of designs for, what would work. And we basically got the stock Leaf, and we're reviewing a bunch of designs of pickup trucks that we have here at Nissan. We decided to go with a Frontier bed because of the size of the bed. We basically got the doors out of the way and cut the back part of the roof and folded it down. We just basically cut along the B pillar and the C pillar and just folded it down so we could keep it intact until we decided what we were going to do with the window situation, because we still hadn't decided what to do. After reviewing the design, to where we wanted it, I realized that we didn't have to chop the bed of the Frontier because the bed is the same length, front to back. And we did have to modify the bed, cut 10 inches of the bed, side to side. We had to chop it and then cut about 4 inches from the height. We kept the stock interior, and we had to do a major modification to the back, of the cab. So what we did, we had a vehicle that was going to get crushed. We had to go out to the boneyard and take the whole back end of the cab off, basically using some sawzalls, because the whole back end of this thing is actually tightened, and it actually has a power window, which works, by the way. Another thing was the lighting system, and we said, let's go crazy on this thing. Let's put some really cool looking lights on it. We kept the backup lights, the turn signal lights, and then we had to figure out how are we going to use the parking and the brake lights. So we did have the high mount brake light on the actual wheel tail, but we modified the LED system of the brake light system, and we mounted them on the original reflectors. These are reflectors that we cut out, and we modified the brake lights and put them in the back. And there's also some underneath that actually light up the ground. There's 6 on each side. There's 6 right here and 6 right here. And it's the parking lights and the brake lights also. I got to put something nostalgic in this thing, and it kind of looks like a beach truck or something like that. Better way than turn it into like a Woody or something like that, So I went old school, and I had some old fringe strips in my garage at home that had been sitting there for years and didn't have any use for them. So I cut them up with my router and formed the edges, and I had some sealer and stuff that I put on them, and kind of looks like an old 1950s truck now, when you look at the bed actually. So it was a lot of work, but I mean, with all the guys contributing, it was just a lot of fun.
We try to keep the secret and be exciting for everybody. But we have visitors that they come and they see that truck and they go straight to what is it? And they start looking at it, so it makes a good conversation. Being a slick truck and not so tough, I think I see it as a boy, but a boy with a heart. It's something that we all put together. we all share. So it has a little bit of us in there, of everybody.
There you go. What did you think of that, Robert? Did you like it? We're waiting. Oh, I got an audio there from Robert for a second. No, Chelsea. You're not a fan of pickups then, Chelsea?
Oh, no. I think it's a great little project. It does. It reminds me a little bit of the Murano cross cab and that sort of
failed,
sort of that hodgepodgey look. But I mean, it does not surprise me to come out of the guys from Arizona and that little tech group, or big tech group. And obviously, it's gotten quite a bit of attention. I do actually I've seen a lot of people that look at it and go, "I would love to have one." I don't personally need a pickup truck, but
I would love
this cute little thing.
I would absolutely adore one. And Robert, you could carry your chickens in it. He can't hear a word I'm saying. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you very much to Robert for joining us. I'm sorry that Robert's audio's gone haywire, but there we go. You can follow him at lutube.com. And you can find him on YouTube if you go to YouTube and look for both Carpool and also what's the name of the other site? Fully Charged, of course. Robert is doing excellent things there. Yes, he's putting his thumbs up, which is good. I don't know if I put the wrong address or something. And his book's coming out soon. His new book is coming out soon. News from the Clouds. And if you haven't read the other two, News from Gardena and News from the Squares, are still available from all good bookshops and online retailers, and even as audiobooks, I believe, with Mr. Llewellyn voicing it himself, which is great. And Chelsea, tell us where people can find out about you.
I am Evie Chels everywhere. Facebook, blogs, bathroom wall, you name it.
Oh, you are so fun. I'm so glad you've been on the show today. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Thanks to everyone who's sending us nice comments in the chat room. I know the chat room's been broken today. I apologise that we've had some problems with the audio. I don't know what's going on. I'm looking at this here. We really do need somebody else to do the tech side of things, but there's nobody else. So you're stuck with me. And there's limited amounts of stuff that I can do during a show, obviously, because I'm in front of a camera, to try and do all the knobs and things like that. But we will be back next week at the usual time of 6 p.m. British summertime, pending me not going back into hospital, of course. And we will have a show on Friday of TEN. We've got some exciting developments coming up, so please do stick around. Things are going to be changing slightly in retrospect of my hospitalisation visit. But do stick around, keep subscribing, and as always, folks, don't forget to plug in. See you soon. Take care. Bye.